My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Guitarist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.guitarist.com, and we're speaking with our special guest tonight, which is Robby Lochner, the guitar player from Jack Russell's Great White. Welcome to the show once again, Robbie. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
And I want to talk to you. I seen your new single out. It's a great cover of Steppenwood's song "Born to Be Wild." Now that's a solo track, correct?
Solo, yeah. Yes.
And of course, it features the great Jack Russell. So, you might share with us how the idea for this came about?
Actually, we had tracked some basic ideas to it a while ago, and we were sitting on it through all this downtime, and I thought, man, why don't we just finish this and put it out? It's just kind of cool. So, and there's more remakes in the works. Another one that's going to be dropping pretty quick here too. That's just really super cool. And
so ultimately, you're working towards like having a covers CD out.
Not really. I mean, it could happen, but it's just really just kind of like singles. That just another track that I've been sitting on for a while that had some really cool guitars in it. It's acoustic, and it's got this guy Jose Antonio Rodriguez from Spain. He's playing the flamenco guitars on it. It was just amazing, and I just do steel string, straight up kind of parts to it, but with a little bit of some ripping solos in there. But his stuff is just incredible, and so I put together this remake, and it's man, this one's really super cool. You got some other guests besides Jack singing on it. So
okay. That's cool. Now, Robbie, we of course know what a monster guitar player you are, but in doing a project like this, have you ever given any thoughts to like taking a crack at being a lead vocalist?
Well, I mean, it's not really my aspiration.
I hear you. Yeah.
But I do have a single that I put out about 3 or 4 weeks ago that I do everything but the drums on it, and then I've got another one. Oh, I know this is airing at a later date. Can I say that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, but I have another one that's premiering tonight with me on YouTube, and I'm doing all the parts, and it's an actual video. The other one was just a picture video, all these different pictures, and then I put some shots of me in there and shots of Jack. It was a song called Best Years of Our Lives.
Oh, wow.
This one's called Free, and it's actually another track that I've been sitting on for a long time, and it's part of a concept record I was working on. Years ago, before I got with Jack. And I had all these songs that were kind of laid out, sort of, and only really Best Years was done, and Free was pretty much done, and I think there's 3 or 4 of them that were done. The rest of them are just they still need a lot of work. But the song Free is the 3rd track on the CD, and there's 4 songs that go together, and they tie together as one.
Oh, wow.
Ultimately, it's how it's supposed to be. So really, I'm singing on all that, and really it's just because I didn't have anybody.
Yeah, why not? I hear you. I hear you. Why not? And that's cool. Now, as far as people being able to check out these tracks, like you said, there's one premiering tonight. Where do they go to check that out? Your Facebook page, YouTube, or?
Well, YouTube's the best place because that's where they're at. They're on my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
Robby Lochner YouTube, really, ROBBYLOCHNER, and you just type that in and you should find my channel.
Oh, wow. So we see what you've been doing in this COVID-19 downtime. That's a great way to keep busy. Get some of this music that's been kind of laying around.
Yeah. Finish it up and try and get it out, and then plus I've been doing these as a weekly release, so I've been doing a video a week for the last I guess this video is going to be video 13.
Wow.
So 13 weeks of it. I started off with a single that I wrote with this kid that used to be a student of mine named Dado.
Oh, wow.
And we released a song called Social Distancing. And then it just went from there. Then I did like Sonata in C, and I did a ragtime piece, and then I did some stuff that just little like solo stuff. And then I started finding the music stuff seems to be more popular when I put out Best Years and even Social Distancing, and then Born to Be Wild. And I also have Fast Road on my channel. And it just seemed to be people want to see music videos more than they want to see, me sit down play Mozart's Sonata in C. Even though that one did pretty good. I mean, considering it's just.
I think a huge part of that is because of where we are in the world right now. nobody's able to really go out there and perform live right now, and they don't know in certain areas of the country. I mean, I live in California like you, and Governor here is saying, I don't know when we're going to have live concerts again, and that's kind of just such a depressing thing, because we need some form of, entertainment, and a lot of bands, even established bands, aren't releasing any new music these days, and so I think when an artist like you is putting out any type of new music, people love to check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. So hopefully, check out the new one for sure. It's actually a performance. You have to see it because it's. I don't know. I guess that by the time this airs, it won't matter because people will have seen it. But it's because it's me playing all the parts because I'm playing all the parts, but individually, like different, not exactly location because it's all in my studio, but different angles, different looks, and it's just kind of funny. It starts off with some skits that I put together, and then I have a drummer that played on this track as well as another one, Best Years, and I had him film himself playing it.
Wow.
And put it all together, and it's actually like a really performance. It's James Everly did the editing, so I sat with him and really meticulously went through all the footage and decided what would go where.
Great stuff to look forward to, definitely. Now let me ask you, getting back to the most recent Steppenwolf cover for Born to Be Wild. I was curious, as Steppenwolf, do you remember how you first got into their music or became a fan?
Into Steppenwolf?
Yeah.
Boy.
I mean, probably that one song, because that's a song pretty much everybody's heard of or knows of, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super popular. That, and what is it? Free Ride, or not Free Ride? Sorry,
Magic Carpet Ride.
Magic Carpet Ride. Yeah, Magic Carpet Ride. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you're aware of it. Ace Frehley, he did a cover of that on his on one of his most recent solo albums.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but
cool.
that's pretty cool. Now, you do a lot of the stuff you're saying in your home studio. I know you have. Yeah. You're mentioning a lot of these tracks you did as a kind of a solo artist, where it's just kind of you. What what do you prefer? Like, if you had a preference, doing a like solo performance like you've been doing kind of like lately. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer to like be part of a band where you have other guys?
I prefer to be part of a band. I mean, I just like the camaraderie, the unity of that is just, I really had only done the solo stuff, even the solo records I put out in the past, just because at that time I wasn't in a band.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I needed to be doing something.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I pushed myself into learning to produce and sing and do all the parts. I was like, well, I gotta do it, because what am I gonna do? Sit around and do nothing, or just do instrumentals? I mean, I write songs. I want to be able to perform them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I like a lot of that guitar shredding type of music, but it's got to have some kind of a feel to it. I do prefer stuff with vocals. I will say that, but
yeah, same here.
So
even like with this this record that I want to do, the themed record or whatever, I've talked to Jack about. I'm like, hey, maybe you should come in and sing some of the tracks instead of me singing them all, since
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, okay. So, I really got to kind of push him into doing some of these tracks that I've got instead of me singing them, because I've sang down a couple of them. I'm like, I'm not real happy with that. Maybe if I had somebody else sing it.
Yeah. And see, what I think would be cool about that, even though people are used to seeing you and Jack perform together, is this will be stuff that he'll be singing like somebody else's material that, that he didn't really necessarily have a hand in writing. That'd be kind of interesting to see him kind of, interpret somebody else's material.
Yeah, well, of course, if he got involved in it, and which he says he will, I would, allow him free range to do
what he wants,
whatever. Yeah, I mean, help rewrite lyrics, help, change melodies, do whatever, and give him writing credit, because that would be part of it. I want him to sound like him and be comfortable being him, and he gets the concept of what the record is. Yeah. It's really clear what it is, and he can totally get into it. So, he could do it. He can certainly do it.
And Robbie, I gotta ask you, because another thing I know you're part of it that I've really been enjoying lately is the new Jack Russell CD, One Spit In Acoustic Bites. I know that was recorded in your studio, I believe, and you were the producer. Yes. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was cool. That was it. Actually, was initially not even supposed to be. We were going to do just a few tracks.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, let's do the whole record, but it was just going to be Jack and I just doing kind of how we do our live acoustic shows. And then it just somehow molded into everybody wanted to jump in. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And we were under such a timeline that, it was initially, and it still took forever to get out. So
yeah.
We just broke that timeline and said, forget it. Let's just make sure it's right.
So, like, did you guys actually? I mean, you were in the studio together. These are like new versions. Like, you actually performed these live when you recorded it, right?
Most of it, not all of it. We did that "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You," the Zeppelin thing.
Yeah.
That was spent some time on getting that, because that was a little tricky, because if you listen to the original, we wanted it to be pretty much like the original, which is always dangerous to tread down that, because every time you try and redo something that was done, you can't. I mean, you're just fighting an uphill battle. How are you going to compete with it? You know, you just can't. You got to do something to change it. But this song, we're like, okay, we're going to do it as close as possible. All the little things that are in there, but in our way, sort of. And the meter is different on the original. It's slower, and then it speeds up, and we just put this right to a click and played it down, and just probably more of, I guess you would say, a more modern production on it, I suppose.
And because a lot of this stuff was originally recorded like electrically, how big of a deal is that? Like going from like an electric version of a song to acoustic version?
As far as the Zeppelin track, we did it pretty much. I mean, I did all the Les Paul guitars. I mean, I did all the electrics on that. But the acoustic stuff, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I thought it made it a lot easier. Because, like I said, if we tried to redo this stuff electrical-wise, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Even when the bands do it themselves, you listen to it and you immediately know it's not the original recording, and it just doesn't sound as good. I mean, it never seems to, because how do you compete with something that's an iconic classic track? So the only way to do it, in my mind, was, hey, if we're doing it acoustically, then we can change things up. We can give it its own new personality, and now it can stand on its own without going, oh, well, you know, Rock Me doesn't sound as good as it did originally, you know, or whatever.
Were there any songs you guys wanted to do that you found out just wouldn't work acoustically, or you couldn't really nail?
On that record?
Well, not. I mean, when you were in the studio, is there any tracks that maybe didn't make it on here, but you thought, oh, let's...
No, they all made it, because what we did was we did the Once Bitten acoustic. It's the Once Bitten record acoustically. We did the whole thing, and everything made it. So, I mean, we weren't going to allow a track not to make it. And now there's talk of us doing the Twice Shy record, and it would be the same thing. We'd have to sit there and analyze what we're going to do, and start kind of picking it apart, and kind of giving each song its own life. It's got to have its own thing, and as long as we take it in its own new direction without just robbing it of what it's supposed to be, then I think, you know, it should be okay.
I like, you know, a lot of these acoustic records. Tesla came out with one recently. They're one band that really nailed the acoustic thing. You know, back in the day, they had MTV Unplugged, and a lot of these bands were doing stuff like this. And I think that this record is like a great reminder to those days, because I love to hear stuff acoustically. You know, even if you go and see somebody perform, you know, Unplugged live, it's just really a different kind of taste of what you typically see at a live show.
Oh, for sure it is. And it's funny, because back at that time, my Jack had told me, he goes, you know, he had suggested doing the acoustic thing, and their manager didn't want to do it, shot him down on it.
That's a shame.
People were shooting him down, and then all of a sudden Tesla comes out and blows up huge with these acoustic tracks, and he's like, son of a, you know. He had the idea, and then, you know, somebody else took it and ran with it, and he lost out, you know. As
they say, better late than never. But this is just a great album, and what I love is that you didn't just like go with the obvious hits, you know. Like there's like one song that I really love on this, which I know is an older tune, but I kind of love it. All Over Now. There's just some great tracks on here. I think for people that maybe hadn't heard this stuff originally when it came out, they're going to discover some great white white songs on here that maybe they didn't.
Yeah, that's cool. Even like Never Change Heart. I mean, that turned out really cool. I thought different, you know, really different. Gave it its own thing. And Living on the Edge, same thing. It turned out really good.
I really like Go and Get Ya, Rock Me. These are just great tracks, and I think it's just a great way to hear it acoustically, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Rock Me. I kind of feel like it's maybe the weakest track on the record. I mean, I struggled with that one the most of everything. Getting the mix right, getting the parts right. I mean, I had to go back in and redo the guitars. I was like, I'm just not feeling it, because I played it down that was a track that I played with it was just Jack and I, how we do it live, the acoustic set when it's just me and him, and then brought the guys in to play to it, and then they were playing it like, they play the track, and I go, well, listen to what I'm doing there. This is not how it's intended to be.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's played like this. Let's go. That has nothing to do with it. We're redoing it, And they kind of stayed in that direction. So I was like, well, it's not really working. I'm going to have to go back in and recut some stuff to make it work. And it seems like, people seem to like it, and it seems to work, but I really struggled with that one in the mix and everything of it. I didn't feel confident with that one.
Oh, I think it came out great. I'll tell you, just some guy that's a great White fan. I'll tell you. See, typically the original song, of course, is a great rockin' tune, and it really is up there. And this is kind of a different version, but at the same time, even though it's an acoustic track, it still, I think, is going to rock everybody's socks off.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And now I also last time I talked to you, Robbie, I think you had mentioned you guys were working on this at the time, and also. You're supposed to be working on like another Led Zeppelin tribute. Is that true?
Yes.
And where are you guys with that?
That one, it's still. I gotta sift through all the tracks. There's so many live. It's a live CD, so I have to sift through, and I've done that. I've sifted through some of it. So some of it is laid out and ready, but it's really got to come from different performances. It can't come from one.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
They're just not. It's not. Some of them aren't working. So I got to find them in amongst all the different stuff, and then kind of compile it and arrange it, and then mix it. So it's a little bit of an undertaking, but I would say hopefully we'll get that out
sometime this year, next year, huh? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's the goal. And if there's something that's just not working, maybe we have to do another show and re-record specifically to have certain tracks on there.
Yeah, and that's got to be a difficult thing as a producer. It's one thing like if you record something at one performance, but like you said, it's very hard to match up different performances. But I mean, Motley Crue did that with their live album, but I think they pulled it off. They had different tracks from different performances, but it came out all right. And you guys did a great track or video rather for the song. What is it? Fast Road. I kind of love that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the making of that video.
Let's see. Well, everybody was in their own location doing the Zoom thing, and
yeah.
And that's it's pretty basic. Just film, let's play, film, and go.
Yeah, that's amazing. That Zoom thing. Me currently, I'm getting paid at home to do work, and we have these Zoom meetings. It's just the technology is just amazing.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I never even heard of Zoom until all this social distancing, and then since then also I've been doing tracks for a friend of mine, Magic Marino, and he's a producer engineer who's worked with I got the list of people: Michael Jackson, Phil Collins, Lionel Ritchie, Eric Clapton, Barbra Streisand. It's just a ton of people, right? So he's got this studio, really nice studio in his home. And normally people will send me tracks. I've been getting tracks to record for people during this time. Okay, you can make some money or whatever. Yeah. And they send me the tracks and record them. But he's like, no. He's got to record them. I'm like, okay. I get it, right? But there's this new technology, the VST Connect that he has that he hooks up to my studio. So I'm at my house. We use my mic pre's, my mics. I'm plugged into my amps and everything, but it records on his system in real time. It's crazy and it works.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, another thing I know you've been involved with over the years, Robbie, is every year they put out, usually at the beginning of the year, they have that great annual Ronnie Montrose tribute concert that Keith St. John puts together. And I know you've been a big part of that. And so I was kind of curious, how big of a Ronnie Montrose fan were you?
I loved Ronnie. That first record in particular was just super iconic. I've read that the sales were not that big, which just shocks me because it seems like everybody knows that record. Seemed like everybody owned it. I'm like, how could there not be millions of sales on that thing? Yeah,
what amazes me is I actually have interviewed people that took part in it, and what amazes me myself is I remember when Ronnie was still alive, and they put together like a tribute concert. He put like out a DVD that he was performing with different players or something, or I think it might have been when he first died. But like a lot of people, I come to find out there's a lot more to Ronnie Montrose than just those first 2 albums with Sammy Hagar.
Oh yeah,
you know,
way more than that.
Like I was surprised to find out one of my all-time favorite tracks is "Free Ride." I had no idea till they started putting on this concert. I had no idea Ronnie Montrose played that. And I thought, oh man, that's one of the greatest tracks of all time, you know.
Yeah, I played that song at one of the tributes, and then also done Wild Nights, because he did the Van Morrison stuff too.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a lot of stuff that I didn't know. You know, I really didn't know until actually our bass player Dan McNay had played with Ronnie, and he was giving me a lot of the history lesson there, and I was like, wow, I didn't know that. You know?
See, that's the thing I find myself as a Montrose fan, is since his death, I've come to realize, like I said, there's a lot more to Ronnie Montrose's legacy than just those 2 albums. Like even though Keith St. John, I don't think ever did a record with him, he performed with him for about 10 years, and like he's the one, I guess, that picks a lot of these songs that are performed during the concert, and he's able to match up the players, like such as yourself, with who else is going to perform, let's say Free Ride or whatever the case may be. And a lot of people are hearing these other songs for the very first time, you know. Like a lot of people don't even maybe know that there's a song that Montrose did, I think it's on their 3rd album. It was with the singer Bob James. It's called 20 Flight Rock. It was originally an Eddie Cochran tune. But see, and I didn't even realize that. I thought that was a Montrose tune when I originally heard it. So it's kind of interesting to be learning of all this other Ronnie Montrose music that's out there that people were never exposed to before.
Yeah, they didn't just didn't realize.
Or they're just discovering it now.
Brown-Eyed Girls. Like, how many people have heard Brown-Eyed Girls?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, that's Ronnie Montrose playing guitar? What?
Yeah.
It's not what you'd expect from him, but that's, you know, he was versatile that way. He played a lot of different stuff, and it's a lot of great stuff. I mean, for me, though, his solo stuff, of course, the first record with Sammy was, you know, that is iconic.
And let me ask if I don't know if you're aware of this, but on the second album, Paper Money, they actually do a Rolling Stones cover. Are you aware of that?
No, I didn't know that.
There's a song on their album, Paper Money. It's called Connections. You could look it up on YouTube, and you'd be interested to learn that that's the only song I think Ronnie ever did a lead vocal on. And if you go on YouTube and you search for the Rolling Stones original version, they sound like 2 completely different songs. You know, and where the Montrose version is more like of a ballad, but very interesting, like just to learn all this stuff about Ronnie Montrose that a lot of people didn't know until after he died, you know. Yeah, and even myself, that one Edgar Winter album that Free Ride's on, I think it's called They Only Come Out at Night. You know, when I realized Ronnie played that, and that came out in 1972, and 1 year later is when they put out that great Montrose album that everybody's still listening to all these years later, you know.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, but as far as like influences, Robbie, who would you say are your guitar heroes, or, you know, kind of the musicians you grew up on that really inspired you?
Well, you know, it's changed over time.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, early on, I mean, I really liked, and still do, but like Ritchie Blackmore is just, you know, he's got his, he sounds like Ritchie. You hear him, and I think that's really the key, and a lot of it is when you hear somebody and you know who it is, versus you go, oh yeah, he's a great player. Who is that? You don't know. They sound like, you know, 100 other great players that you hear. They all have the same licks, do the same thing. Ritchie Blackmore sounds like Ritchie Blackmore. Besides having this great songs and all the ability, he's Ritchie Blackmore. Van Halen, of course. I mean, he's probably the most influential guitar player of all time, really, in the rock world. Him or Jimi Hendrix.
No, Hendrix is just amazing because he's kind of a triple threat when you consider the fact he's not just a great guitar player, you know, musically, but look what he did physically. I mean, he could play the guitar with his teeth. I mean, he was a great songwriter. He's a lead singer. He's one of those guys that could do it all. Yeah, and then Eddie Van Halen, of course, look at what he does, but most people may be amazed to learn the guy can't read a lick of music, but look at what he does on the guitar, you know?
Yeah, that for me, it's never surprised me, guys. Like, there's just lots of them that don't read music. They play from the heart, they play from the soul.
I think that's what's most important, you know, playing from the heart. I mean, but even with Van Halen, I read early on in their career where Roth would tell Eddie, hey, hey man, don't let anybody see the way you're playing the guitar. Kind of hide your fingers or whatever, you know. Don't let the audience see everything you're doing. Kind of keep it a secret.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because when you teach yourself like Hammer, I was a self-taught player. I mean, really, I learned from records, so self-taught, but I'm learning from these guys, but you also learn things wrong as you're learning. As I got better, I could learn things right, but learn from them, and when you learn something wrong, you discover something too, and then you learn it right, and you expand on what they do. But there's something to that versus, I've heard a lot of people say that, go, yeah, I went to MI, whatever, and they're in a class of 100 guys, and they're all playing the same lick, and they're like looking around going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
There's no individuality. Then it's like, yeah, you can read, but it's funny because I've taught guitar for years, and I still do teach. But when, you know, there's parents will come in and go, yeah, he really needs to read. I'm going, that's great. I'll teach him to read because I taught myself to read.
Yeah.
But they're under the assumption that if you don't read, you'll never have success in music. And it's hard to sit there and tell a parent that is not true.
Yeah, but okay.
Because they want you to be telling them, yes, you got to read. So I'm like, arm yourself with everything. Of course, you're trying to learn your craft. Anything you can do, as many things as you can do. But it's just the fact that you can't read doesn't mean you can't be successful. There's way too many people that prove otherwise.
Yeah, as far as guitar playing, there's like two, like you kind of just said, there's two kind of avenues of that. There are guys that say that play like a Vinnie Vince, and they can play very precise, or even like Yngwie Malmsteen, they're like great shredders. But I feel like you said, it's more important to play from the heart and kind of come up with stuff that fits the song. It's not all about showing how fast you can play, you know? Yeah. And Ritchie Blackmore is, you know, very interesting because he's one of my favorite guitar players. But of course, people for years, they primarily know him, of course, Deep Purple, even Rainbow. And I remember maybe about 20 years ago when he put together this project called Blackmore's Night with his wife Candace. Very different sounding stuff, and I'll be honest, like a lot of people, when I heard people describe it as like kind of folky music, like I was kind of turned off. But I'll be honest, I didn't even give it a fair listen. And then his publicist sent me a copy of one of their CDs to kind of review, and I'll be honest, it's not Deep Purple or Rainbow if that's what you're looking for, but quite pleasantly to my ears, I was surprised the music wasn't so bad. You just got to open yourself up to kind of different sounding stuff, you know, sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's actually really good.
Yeah.
It's funny because they were, I don't know if they still are, but they were on Adel, a label called Adel. And back in 96, I think it was, I was working with a guy that we were doing this band, and we were trying to put together this modern rock band for the time. And he was working for Adel America, and he was doing radio promotion. And he was like, hey, you want to work with me? I'm like, sure, I want to learn about how everything gets on the radio and whatever. So anyhow, we're Adel, right? So we get the tracks. So I've still got CDs from that time, you know, the stuff that came from the label. But we were working them to radio, trying to get them, you know, ads, get their stuff played. And it was different even for AC, you know, the adult contemporary stations. It was like, okay, this is different. But you start telling people, Ritchie Blackmore, oh yeah, you know, this is not the rock station. It was like, well, you know, you got to listen to it. It's not Deep Purple. It's different. And then, but it still didn't even fit that kind of station because it's almost Celtic. And it's really good. And we did get some ads, but apparently not enough for Candace's mom. She was the manager at the time. I don't know if she still is, but she ended up getting us fired.
Wow.
Like, they're not getting enough airplay for them, and then he should be getting this and that and this. And I was like, well, we tried as hard as we can. Good luck with that, because nobody's going to get the airplay you think they're going to get out of this.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like, even a Ritchie Blackmore could go through something like that as great as he is, because I kind of, through talking to somebody else, found out, you know, a lot of people fail to realize, if you even listen to Deep Purple or especially Rainbow, a lot of that stuff is based on like neoclassical music. Even a lot of what Ritchie was influenced on was a lot of that neoclassical stuff. Yeah, so
that's great. I mean, he's something special. I have a friend of mine that was asked to join that band, and playing bass, because it's really just him. But they brought him over to play bass, and he ended up doing a different gig. But when he played with him, he goes, he's just like, it's magical. I go, and I bet. I'm sure it is, and it could also be the fact that you're just playing with Ritchie Blackmore.
Yeah,
and that's magical in itself.
Yeah.
You know, but he just said it was just incredible, which I'm sure it was.
And of course, I've never met Ritchie, but one thing I dig about him, he's just totally an original type of guy. I mean, like, he hated, he eventually left Deep Purple, from what I understand, because him and the other guys just did not get along. He hated most of them, I think, except for John Lord. He just couldn't stand playing with the rest of them, and to his detriment, he just like, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to form Rainbow. I'm going to do this now. And like, he didn't care what people thought of Blackmore's night music. He said, this is what I love to do. I'm going to, I guess he's in a place where it really doesn't matter if he sells another record or not, but he's happy, I guess, doing what he's doing, and that's, I guess, important.
Rainbow, look at all the singers he discovered. I mean, that they went on and did pretty well after being with him. But I have to say that when he was with Deep Purple, there's no question that the Magic Five, Ian Gillan, Ian Pace, John Lord, Roger Glover, and Ritchie Blackmore, that was pure magic. I mean, they did the Machine Head record. I mean, that's undeniable, great. And then they broke up and they came back together and did Was It Perfect Strangers? Yeah. Undeniably great. There was chemistry when those five guys were in the room, whether they hated each other or not, which is odd. If you hate somebody, you would think that, it'd be hard to put something great out, but they did. They had a magic that is undeniable. And to me personally, I feel like, and I could be wrong, who knows, nobody would really know, but I feel like had they stayed together, that band would have been easily as big as Zeppelin. I mean, the talent was incredible, and the magic they had when they were together was just something special.
Well, I agree. I got to ask you, Robbie, as a Deep Purple fan, obviously you are. I'll tell you, to me, the two best, greatest albums of all time got to be. I go between Machine Head and Burn. I don't know which one I like better, but what impresses me the most is like two totally different singers and two great albums. I just don't know which is better,
I like Machine Head better by far. I had both of them because I was a big fan. My parents bought them for me when I was a kid. And then I would go, my two favorite are definitely Perfect Strangers and Machine Head, and I would lean with Machine Head just because it's
obvious,
But Burn was cool, but it just wasn't, for me, it was like, I mean, there was a lot of hit and miss on there. It wasn't every track as stellar,
I tell you what impressed me maybe about Burn is when those Deep Purple albums originally came out, I was a little young at the time, but I kind of like I was a teenager when the '87 Whitesnake album came out, and that's kind of when I discovered Whitesnake. And it wasn't until I became a Whitesnake fan that I realized Coverdale was also previously in Deep Purple. I kind of discovered those Deep Purple albums, after I discovered Whitesnake, and it's kind of interesting. Well, that's the same guy in Whitesnake, okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Him and of course
Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. Are you at all a fan of the Dead Daisies? Because they're coming out with a new album, and Glenn Hughes is a new singer.
Yeah, I've heard that they are with Glenn Hughes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. And Glenn's such a great player, but I guess when Robbie left and Marco Mendoza, he actually took the place of both those guys because he's playing the bass and singing.
Right.
So that's one I'm looking forward to. And getting back to Deep Purple, what I always loved about that band, like you said, you go see them live, and they're a great live performing band. I mean, they'd be jamming on a song, like one song for 30 minutes. And when people tell me keyboards suck and all that, I say, well, you just look at what John Lord did in Deep Purple, and then you tell me that.
Yeah, because for the most part, I'm not really a big fan of keyboards, but if you're talking John Lord or if you're talking Boston music, I mean, it's so relevant to the parts and it's so good. I mean, really, in Deep Purple is the masters of jamming, because you look at bands and they go and they play it. Either they go out and they play it just like the record for the fans, or they try and change it. Usually they change it and it's for the worst. Those guys will go like listen to was it Made in Japan or whatever with the live record they did. I mean, incredible. They changed those songs dramatically, and it's like, wow, they're still really super good. Yeah. And they didn't destroy it, but they changed it so much. I'm like, oh, these guys are just masters of what they do. Their craft. I mean, it's incredible.
And what I love with Deep Purple, a lot of that stuff happened accidentally. Like I seen a Behind the Music years ago on them, and they were talking about when Made in Japan came out, it was kind of a contractual obligation. They didn't even want to do it. They were kind of forced to put it out, and it became a hit like overnight. And kind of like what you're saying, I've heard I think John Lord talked in a couple interviews over the years where he was saying, Ian Gillan and Blackmore they hated each other so much with such a passion that the strange thing was when they got together, it made beautiful music, if you know what I mean, the tension between them.
Yeah, it's so weird. You would think that hatred wouldn't allow it, but it's, talk about the
beautiful music,
the magic. Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, it's undeniable, really. It's just incredible.
And then I guess the last thing I want to ask you about before we wrap this up is, like you were discussing a little bit ago, that you were sharing with me the other day that you teach guitar, and I was curious, a lot of your students, do you get them like word of mouth? Do people
it's strictly word of mouth.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I used to teach, different music stores, and I even taught at a school of rock a couple years ago, but it's just, I kind of
and then
moved away from that, but it's just that I keep getting people coming to me, and I'm not going to turn anybody down.
Of course,
to learn them.
And then I seen an ad on Facebook recently. I don't know if it's already taken place or not, where I think it was you guys were going to perform Great White material. They were going to have Terry Lewis is no longer a singer in Great White. He's the guy that replaced Jack actually in the band. That you guys are going to do some type of show together. Is that still?
That's tomorrow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's tomorrow. It'll be live. It's just going to be acoustic. So Jack and I will do 4 Great White songs, 2 Zeppelin, and Terry will do 4 XYZ, and then he'll join us on the 1 Great White and 1 Zeppelin.
And will they be doing any Great White material from Terry's era of the band?
No, because Terry might.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I'm not sure what Terry's doing exactly, but it's I think he's just doing XYZ. I think he's over the Great White thing.
Yeah.
But he will join us on 1 Spit, and he'll join us on a Zeppelin tune.
Yeah, I will say this as a casual observer. I think it's cool doing something like this where it shows that, what a cool guy Jack Russell is, that he can actually do a show like this, the guy that took his place in the band,
Well, they've been friends for a little while.
Before that,
And it's interesting because he actually reached out to Terry before Terry got fired.
Yeah.
Just to say, hey, it's cool, hey,
you're
doing what you're doing, I like your new song, whatever, just to be friends.
Yeah.
And then he ends up getting fired, and wow, that made him even closer.
That's the last thing I was going to say is that, it's kind of funny the way that all played out because, of course, when Terry first joined the band, it was great. And I think a lot of the fans were as surprised as Terry when all that went down, because from what I understand is he learned through the internet that Great White had got a Mitch Malloy, who's in there now. I'm like, oh, what a way to do this thing. The guy's been in the band. He's kind of established himself. You could have at least given him a phone call, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And what's funny is I knew before he did. I had heard that they were getting rid of him.
Wow.
And I forgot who had told me, and I thought, wow, I wonder if that's real.
Yeah.
And then it didn't happen right when I had heard it was going to happen. It happened about 2 weeks later. And then when it happened, I went, oh, okay. Yeah. It was real.
And then final question for you, because I was just kind of curious because I've been interviewing people about you've seen how people have been making these lists on Facebook of their all-time favorite top 10 or top 20 albums. Is there an album in your collection, Robbie, where you could kind of point to say that album really had a huge influence on me? It really had a big impact on me doing what I'm doing today. Well, I guess if you were to make one of those lists, what's something that would be on there, maybe?
Well, if I was to say, I don't know if I would necessarily say it as an influence, but there's records that I really like. Top 10 records is hard because there's so many of them, but for sure, Machine Head would be on there. First Van Halen, System of a Down, Toxicity.
Oh, that's cool. Now, System of a Down, they're kind of more like that new metal type of stuff. I mean, so obviously when that came out, you were a big fan of that, but did it take you a while to get used to kind of a different kind of sounding guitar tone, or is that kind of what drew you to it?
No, you know what? It did take me a little bit. It was actually what had happened was this girl I was dating, her son was playing it, and I was like, oh my God, he played this stuff. I'm like, wow, whatever,
Yeah.
And then he kept it and I'd be hearing it in the background. You know, it's the same way I got into Kiss as a little kid because my brothers were always playing it. And at first I'm like, what's this? You know, and then I would hear Kiss over and over, and all of a sudden I became a big Kiss fan for the first, you know, 6 records. The Kiss, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, which is my favorite record.
Oh, wow.
Then Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun. Those 6 were like the iconic, great records. But it was the same kind of thing, though. He's playing it, and then that at the song At Wah, I guess it is, started grabbing me. I was going, oh man, that's pretty good.
Now you bring up Dressed to Kill. I got to ask, because one of my all-time favorite songs off that is Rock Bottom. What did you think of that as a guitar player?
Well, as a guitar player, I never listened to it as a guitar player. I listened to it as a fan.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. You know, that whole record, Come On and Love Me is probably my favorite track on that one. But it's really, I listen to it as a fan, not as like, oh, listen to the guitar licks. No, not really. No. I mean, I just listen to it as the songs and liking the songs. Yeah, and you know, it's kind of interesting, like, he's talking about Dressed to Kill, you know, Rock and Roll All Night went on to be one of their biggest hits ever. But what kind of interests me about that song is they had a bigger hit a year later when the Kiss Alive 1 album came out. The live version was just such a, very much like with Cheap Trick. I don't know if you've ever heard the original version of I Want You to Want Me. The live from Budokan? Yeah, well, that if you listen to that, I mean, you listen to the original studio version of I Want You to Want, 2 completely different songs. The original version almost sounds like a country kind of twangy song, but just amazing what they did with that. Yeah. Well, Robbie, I want to thank you for taking time talking to me. It's been a lot of fun, and maybe when the Zeppelin Tribute CD is ready to come out, we can talk again. But thanks for doing this. Cool. I'll let you know when it gets posted. Okay, bye-bye. Okay. Take care.